Hey there, it's Leo from Firecrawl, and in this video, we'll take a look at how you can use our endpoint along with really any model, but more so the new popular Claude Opus 4.5 to create some pretty nice implementations, either inside of n8n or just vibe coding it out inside of a Next.js app. But before we do that, let's take a look at the Firecrawl scrape features code-wise. If you check our advanced scraping guide, you'll notice that we have a lot of different features, going all the way from scraping PDFs down to actually performing actions inside of a website. So let's suppose you have a website with dynamic content and you need to perform some actions like filling in some type of form and then pressing a button and then finally getting to the page that you want to scrape. Well, Firecrawl can do all that for you. Get to that page, scrape all the content, and get everything back to you. For now, let's take a look at the scrape endpoint. Just really scraping any website. For this example, we'll scrape the Firecrawl website, so just firecrawl.dev. All I did for now was create the folders. In here, let me create a index.ts. As soon as that's created, let me head back to the documentation, select node, copy this node, paste it in here, and just with this, you should be able to do a whole lot. So let me just zoom in, get inside of that folder, and now perform bun init blank, clear out the terminal just so it's not that messy. And now let's add the Firecrawl package. So bun add mendable / Firecrawl. As soon as this is done, we should be able to run our app. There's just one thing missing, our API key. To get the API key, you could just head over to firecrawl.dev. You should see your API key here on the right side, but if you don't, just head over to the API keys page. So let me name this one Firecrawl example, create key. As soon as it's created, just click here to copy that, head back to your app and fill that in. Ideally, this should be an environment variable and not really static inside of the script. But as for an example, we should be fine. So bun run index.ts. As soon as I execute this, Firecrawl will go inside of that website, grab the markdown as well as the HTML. That's why we see this huge HTML in here. But if we don't want the HTML, let's erase that, clear out the terminal, hit bun run index.ts, and we should get just the markdown. And if the idea is working with an LLM, providing it the markdown should be the best way to go. But in some cases, we might just want a screenshot of the page, and you also have access to that format. So if I type in bun run index.ts now, I'll have access to this link right here, which if I click on it, open it in my browser, it's simply the screenshot of firecrawl.dev. Now, what I'm showing you here is a project that we're working on to launch probably in the next week, but look at this scrape effect. This is really just the screenshot, and we're scanning through that screenshot. It just gives a much more detailed visualization for the user, which just makes it much, much better and overall just more valuable. And that's just one more of the many different formats that we have inside of the scrape endpoint. Another pretty interesting format is the summary. So you could get a summary of what that website is about by just calling our scrape endpoint. Let me execute this. And let's see what is the summary generated. So there you go. Firecrawl v2.5 is a powerful web data API designed for developers to easily scrape. So this is all generated by Firecrawl and still only uses 1 credit to do so. Now let me just show one more format that is really interesting, which is the branding format. If you use this format, and I've featured this in the last video, but basically with this format, you get the entire branding of any given website. And just combining this with a coding agent will make your website much, much prettier. Okay, so we took a look at a bunch of different formats. Now, what if I wanted the summary of many different websites all at once? I could do that with the batch scrape endpoint. Let me just copy this over. Let's copy it here and then just delete this part. Let's zoom in and let me also change this back to summary. Now, here's the thing. You can opt into starting a batch scrape job. This will give you an ID that you can check every so minutes or seconds to see if the request is done. Then as soon as it's done, you can access all the content from that request. Let's not use that for now. Let's actually wait for the completion. And this is the exact structure you'd use. For us, let's use the summary. And since we're going to receive the summary for both these different websites, let's have a job data. We can iterate through the items of data and then show the summary for each one of those items. Oh, okay. Cursor suggested this join, which should help us differentiate between the texts. So now with all that set, just run run index.ts. This should take just a couple of seconds, and there it is. You get the summary for each one of these different websites. Okay, so let's take a step back and look at the faster scraping. With the fast scraping, and you can do that by just adding the max age parameter, you basically tell Firecrawl, hey, I just want speed. Give me a version of whatever was recently scraped. So for example, the new introducing Claude Sonnet 4.5. You could have Firecrawl go inside of this website, scrape all the content, and feed it back to you. But this is somewhat of a popular page and might have already been scraped before. So it's probably already cached from Firecrawl. What this parameter allows you to get is a cached version between any given time that you set, which can speed up the scraping up to 500%. Now let's check the JSON mode. Let me copy this code, head back to cursor, and paste this in. Again, the only thing you'll have to replace is the API key. Now, to get back a response in a JSON format, we'll have to use Zod. Inside of Zod, you can basically define that schema. So in here, I define that I want the company mission. This should be a string. If it supports SSO, this should be a Boolean. Is open source, Boolean is in Y Combinator, also a Boolean. And we'll do that for the firecrawl.dev website. We add that schema inside of the formats array typed as JSON. We should get back a JSON parameter with those exact values. Now, if you're implementing some kind of competitor tracking system or even a price tracking system where you want to follow along with the website and know if something changed, you might as well go with the change tracking scrape parameter. Let's go all the way down here. I think this is the best example for this, which is if you scrape firecrawl.dev and then you specify change tracking as the format, this is what you'll get. In this object, it'll tell you when that website was previously scraped and if the change status changed at all. So if it's the same, it'll just have this same message, and you'll just know that there's nothing else to be fetched from that website. Another interesting use case for this is if you have a website like anthropics.com/news, you could track this, and whenever there's a new article, this would change, and Firecrawl would pick up on that. The change status would be set to changed, and you'd know that you have to scrape and get that new content from the Anthropic website. We also have a stealth mode, which allows you to use proxy when accessing a website. Now, some websites have advanced anti-bot solutions, which with the stealth mode, you can probably bypass. And all you have to do is add a proxy and set it to either basic, stealth, or auto. And you can check the description for each one of these in here. Over at the proxy page, you'll notice that we can actually define which country we want to trigger Firecrawl to scrape from, because as you probably know, some websites are only accessible from specific countries. So you can just specify that in here as location, set the country, languages, and you should be fine while scraping those type of websites. And last but not least, we have the document parsing, which allows us to scrape data from Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, PDFs, because at the end of the day, what we want is to grab any type of content and feed it over to an LLM so it handles that as text and does whatever we need with it. And this is pretty much handled from Firecrawl by default. Just by sending over a URL with that specific type of document, Firecrawl will scrape that and you can access the content all as Markdown. Okay, this was fun, but now let's actually use the scrape endpoint to create something. So let's check that off. And now let's go over to n8n and create a website SEO analyzer that emails you that analysis of your or any given website's SEO. So I'm here inside of n8n. I have hosted this in a VPS, which is inside of an easy panel instance. Let's start off with a clean workflow. Let me create a n8n form. Inside of this form, let's have it titled as website SEO analyzer. The form description, we won't place anything in there for now. Field name, URL, and placeholder could be firecrawl.dev. This is a required field. We can now save this, maybe even make this active, access the production URL. And in there, if everything was done correctly, hopefully you'll see this URL field. I just placed in firecrawl.dev. Let me hit submit. I shouldn't get anything as a response, but now back in my n8n workflow, I can check the execution. I might now have a JSON that I can copy, go back to the editor, click on that, and pin this response as an output, because now I can search for the Firecrawl node. If it's not installed in your n8n instance for whatever reason, just click a button to install node up here and you should have access to all the Firecrawl nodes. I'll click on scrape a URL and get its content. This is the main node for the scrape endpoint. Let me grab that URL, drag it over here. So now every URL that is sent through that form will come inside of this field. Now down here is where I have access to all of those scrape options. By default, it should return the markdown, but we could also toggle this and select screenshot, summary. And as for the branding, since we haven't updated the node with the branding format, you could just select expression, type in branding in here, and have this be executed. Actually, I don't have the credentials configured yet, so let's do that right now. Click on create credentials, go back to Firecrawl, grab your credentials just the exact same way, place it in this field, hit save. You should see a green message up here. Now, if you execute that step, you should successfully get back the branding for the website that you specified. Okay, there it is. But for this app, let's select fixed and let's go back to Markdown. Now, if I execute the step, I should get back a response with the entire Markdown. Let's go back to the canvas. Let me hit save. And now let's add an AI agent. This AI agent should have a custom prompt, which I just filled in with. This is the website's Markdown. Let me grab the Markdown over here, drag it over there. And now all we have to do is add a system message. For the system message, let me get something that I already did previously, which is telling it that it is an SEO expert, help users by providing instructions on how to improve a website's SEO, as well as GEOs. So generative engine optimization. Your answer must be in HTML as it will be sent through Gmail. Make sure the HTML is well designed. Everything centered and has images from the website. Follow this design branding. Since I specified the branding here, let me also trigger the format to have branding. So let's do that down here. And now if I execute the step, I should get back both the markdown as well as the branding for that website. This will create a cool style of email, which is exactly the same style of the website that we're scraping. Okay, that's done. Let me pin this to not waste any more credits. Now in the system message, we should see the branding. Since we're not, let me add a JSON stringify. This should allow it to actually see that branding structure. Okay, now we have to add a chat model. Let's select Anthropic. We need to set the credential, so let's click on create new credential. Let me go over to console.anthropic.com. In here, we can create a new key. Mine will be Firecrawl scrape. Let me copy that key, and hopefully I don't have to be reminded in the comment section to erase that key. But okay, connection tested successfully. Now let me try to use Claude Opus 4.5. No need to configure anything else in there. I think our agent should be fine. Let's execute the workflow and see if it actually generates that HTML for us. Okay, workflow executed successfully. This is the HTML it generated. Let's see if it even makes sense. I think we're better off looking at it inside of the email. So let me add a Gmail node. Let's use send a message and just drag that output inside of the message field. Now let me send it over to leo@siteguide.com. The subject would be SEO analysis. And now we have to set the credentials for Google, which sometimes can be a bit annoying, but I'll go through this pretty fast. Feel free to pause the video along the way if I did anything way too fast. But let me set this as Firecrawl scrape. Let me hit create and wait for that project to be created. I can click on select project. This will take me to this page. Now let me click on enable APIs and services and already make sure to enable Gmail. As soon as you type that in, just select Gmail API, hit enable, wait a few seconds. This will take you back to that previous page. Okay, as soon as you're in here, just click credentials. This will probably prompt you to configure the consent screen. Click on that. You can now click to get started. Fill in the app name. For me, I just placed in Firecrawl scrape. Now select your user support email, hit next. If you're using a company email like I am, you'll have this internal option, which will make that app available just for the users inside of your organization. But for most people, you'll be using a Gmail account and only this option will be available. That is completely fine. Now for the contact information, you can fill it in with the same email address. Finish, continue, hit create, and just wait a few seconds for it to create your credential. Okay, as soon as you see the screen, you can click on Create Auth Client, select Web Application, and you can now add the authorized redirect URI as this one that n8n gives you. So just click on that. It'll be copied to your clipboard, and I just realized my face might be in front of the screen. Let me add this here, hit create, wait a few seconds, and now you'll have access to the client ID. With that client ID, just grab that, go back to n8n, fill that in, go back to Google, grab your client secret, go back to n8n, fill that in. Now, before clicking on sign in with Google, I'd recommend you going over to audience and either you add a specific email as a test user or you just click on publish app. Since this is just really a quick test, I clicked to publish the app. You can click to go back to testing. I just prefer to do it this way because I can have multiple emails tested. Now, if I go back and click on sign in with Google, I'll see this page of which I can select my email and wait a couple of seconds. This should show up for us with all the scopes that we need to authorize. Now, since we're only going to be sending a email, we just have to focus on this scope right here. Let me go back to the Google Cloud page, click on data access. Here you can add or remove scope. Let's check what is the naming here. So read, compose, send, and permanently delete. Let's write that down. Read, compose, and send emails from your Gmail account. Let's select that, hit update, and you might see this message, but you should be fine. Just check if it's down here. If it is, you can go down, hit save, and that scope will be applied. As soon as it is, you can go back here and click allow, which will give you this connection successful message. So now that the account is connected, let's go back to the AI agent, pin this so it doesn't recreate that, and just click to execute step. But I just realized I placed in sideguide.com and it's .dev. Nice. So after I fixed that, this is what I got. A SEO and geo audit report. There is a lot of working on that system prompt to get this to be even better. If you get a URL like the Claude Opus 4.5 article, go over to that form, submit this. You'll just have to go back to your email and wait for the analysis. So here you have it. It's just failing in getting that logo, but the font is basically the same from Anthropic. You get a SEO improvements, image alt text optimization. This is pretty nice as well. Apparently it identified that Anthropic didn't use alt for this graph. So yeah, this seems pretty interesting, especially given the fact that we basically used 4 nodes and a tool node for this. But what if we didn't want to rely on the n8n forms and then going over to Gmail to grab the entire analysis? What if we just wanted everything inside of a single page? That's exactly what we're going to do using Next.js along with Claude Code. To build this, I have this tiny little prompt here that should help the LLM have the full context of what we want built. The only thing I'd say is missing here is the context with some of the Firecrawl features, because, I mean, the agent could do a pretty good job in searching for that, but we don't want to really leave everything up to the agent. So let's help it by providing it that context. And one of the best ways we can do that is just heading over to Firecrawl's documentation, click to scrape the entire page because then it has the entire context for branding, for the markdown. The LLM will understand which is the structure that it'll get back. Then all I'm going to do here is Control V, add everything there, select everything from my notepad, Claude dangerously skip permissions. It's actually Claude. And be careful with this flag, by the way. Let's add that there. Let me hit enter and see what it builds for us. Now, as you can see inside of my prompt, I specify that I want open router, as we can access different LLMs by really just changing the model, but we'll need its API. So let's go over to open router keys, create API key, Firecrawl scrape feature. Let me hit create, and this is my key. Now let me just leave this here while Claude Opus 4.5 is building everything for us. All right, this took a while, but now that it's finally done, let's open up another terminal. Let's go inside of the Next.js folder. Before I execute this, let's fill in the .env.local. So let me grab the API key from OpenRouter, place that in. Now from Firecrawl, and now I can execute dev, go over to localhost 3000, and let's see. Now I didn't really specify that I wanted the main website to have a specific design. So maybe it's just a generic design that will be, yeah, exactly. So just replaced with whatever was scraped. Okay, this is cool. Yeah, this seems interesting. Now let's just wait for the SEO analysis to come in. We got an unexpected token, so this is some parsing error that I could just grab, go back to Claude, place that in there. It should also be able to go inside of the Firecrawl documentation to find, but it can also just be a quick fix. Let's hit analyze again. Okay, now that it's done, this is the entire analysis. Pretty huge. This is interesting. All right, so at this point, we generated absolutely everything by using the Opus 4.5 model. But anything being generated by our app isn't using that model for now. To make sure it does, we have to change the model right here. I'll just replace this with Claude Opus 4.5. Save, and now re-execute our app. Now let's have it copy a different website. Let's have it copy supabase.com. Let's see what we get. Okay, the UI came in, and it's kind of funny because I don't think our app was prepared to receive dark mode. There is our analysis result as well. Pretty similar to the past model. I guess just reading it through might give us more insights. Well, yeah, those are the things that you can create by using the scrape endpoint. I limited myself to just using it and not use the other features like scrape, map, crawl, as I'll probably use them in a next tutorial. That is it for today. Leave a like if this video helped you at all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then.